Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. Today we're going to start a different little bit of a series called Transitions, and the topic for today is a sensitive one for many of you, maybe tuning in, and it's the death of a loved one. Stay tuned. Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. So today we're going to talk about one of the areas of transition that we help our clients through quite often in life, and that's the death of a loved one. And if you're visiting us today because you recently experienced the death of a loved one in your family, my sincere condolences and sympathies to you and your family. Uh, Now, depending upon your situation, some of the things I'm going to talk about may not be applicable to you, right? If you're the spouse, you might have a few more things that you're going to take away from today, as opposed to a son or a daughter dealing with maybe a death of a parent. So just bear that in mind. Perhaps not all of this will apply, but let's dive in. So the first thing I want to talk about is, and we're going to kind of go through a series of steps in this timeline, is what are the immediate considerations? And I'm talking like the first week after someone passes away. And you'd be surprised there isn't too much that you're going to want to think about outside of being with your family and spending time perhaps planning the funeral and working with a funeral director, if you do choose to go that route, in a burial process and so forth with a family member. Um, but there are a few things to consider. Number one is contacting credit card companies. You don't want any fraudulent things happening while you're in this grieving process, and just starting that process already of maybe taking off the joint person who's now deceased on those credit cards and just notifying those so those cards can get out to you already for use as an individual user, um, could make sense. And also determining if anything with any of the banks that that person might have used uh, is frozen. So just want to make sure no accounts are frozen as you go into this process. In that same kind of week, again, you're going to spend the bulk of your time with a funeral director going through a lot of these steps, figuring out what's available to kind of pay your respects to the deceased. And you're going to want to start to find a list if you can, and make a list, and also notify the people on the list of what happened, to whoever, again, this is, if this is a spouse or someone else in your family that you are the executor for. But a list of advisors. So this will be insurance. This will be attorneys, maybe in your plan, both maybe a business attorney and a estate planning attorney, the accountant for sure, and anyone else that maybe that person had a relationship with that would have impacted them in any kind of financial or legal capacity. Transitioning past that first week, you're going to go into a series of events that kind of tie into the probate process. And we've heard this word before. Essentially, it means the court proceedings to wrap up someone's estate. And part of this process really is going to start with, and you may have already started this, and that is organizing everything you might have for that person. That includes, if you're married to them, a marriage certificate. It includes maybe a will if you guys did one together. It includes all the financial statements that you might have, life insurance, bank statements, investment statements, any business entity information that the deceased might have had. And you're going to organize all this with a estate planning attorney, especially one that will help you through that probate process. In addition, at this time, you can start to go ahead and fill out, you should have gotten death certificates from the funeral home as they process everything for you. And you're going to want to get multiple copies of those. Typically, they'll suggest a number, at least, I would say at least 5 certificates, maybe more depending on how many accounts and things this individual had. But you'll want to have all of that organized for that attorney. And then you're going to work with that life insurance, if there are any benefits, to complete all those beneficiary designations and paperwork to get those proceeds started. The sooner you can start that, the sooner the money can come to the people that need it, right? And a lot of times that documentation can be hard to maybe fill out. It's not something you do every single day. So there's a lot of people like myself that would be glad to sit down with you, be happy to spend some time and just complete that information for you. It's not hard, but there can be some tricky situations, especially with how do you receive the benefits. There's different options on some different insurance plans. So just make sure you're selecting all the things that make sense for you. You may be paying some last minute medical expenses. Again, you want to maybe run that by the probate attorney. It might have to be approved expense by the court to go ahead and be paid. And then also, sometimes the funeral home will contact Social Security Administration to notify them of the person who's passed. But if not, make sure you do that. There might be survivor benefits and things there that you can start claiming right away. And again, you want to get the clock ticking as soon as possible on that stuff so you can get those benefits if you need them. And then also, if they were still employed or if they've recently retired or had jobs in, let's say, the last decade or so that may have had benefits still at, you'll want to reach out to those previous places of employment to see if there are any residual benefits still there. I know this seems like a lot of work, by the way, and it can feel a little overwhelming. And that's why this next point's important, and that is employ really good professionals in your plan to tackle this process. Do not have to go it alone. An attorney, like I said, is going to be valuable, an accountant, but also make sure you understand if you're asking for these individuals for advice, typically the attorneys and accountants out there, you may be paying for that advice. Okay, so make sure you understand what's free, what's just a consultation before you hire them, that you don't incur a lot of expenses that you maybe were unaware of that just causes more friction in the process of cleaning up this person's estate and settling everything out. Lastly, just a quick nod to the Veterans Administration. If your person that you're helping clean up their estate was a veteran, again, contacting them, it's kind of like contacting the Social Security Administration. You just want to make sure all these places know in case there's any follow-up benefits that could come to you or other people. So that really tackles the first probably 3 to 4 weeks of this whole process. And as you continue to move through that probate process into the first several months, there's a couple things that will come up potentially again when the timing of this person passed away that you'll want to be on the lookout for. Number one is taxes. So if this person passed away in, say, middle of the year, by next April, you will need to file that final 1040 for them, the federal tax return. That is to settle their final tax return for their estate. It's different than the Form 706, which the estate planning attorney and or accountant may help you file, which is the final accounting of that person's estate and will help clean that up. And that has to be filed 9 months after the death, so there's a little bit of a timing difference. But the final tax return is one, if you're the spouse, is that final tax return that you'll file with them in a joint filing situation, potentially, depending on your filing situation. And if not your spouse, it'll be that final tax return that you as the executor will have to file and wrap up for the deceased. The last thing that you'll want to make sure you're talking about, and that kind of again goes along with that final Form 706, is what are all the final valuations of everything. And there can be some timing differences here that you may want to pay attention to. And again, I'm not going to go super deep here because everyone's situation is going to be a little different, but you'll want to make sure that the attorney and accountants are finally getting all of the appraisal values. If there's a business that needs to be appraised or real estate and land that still needs to be appraised for that final value of the person's estate, you want to make sure that's done in this time frame too, basically the months following the decedent's death. And then lastly, in that first full year, right, we kind of get past all that. Maybe we file tax returns and stuff. You'll want to be cleaning up some of the more ancillary, we'll call peripheral things that maybe you as a spouse will want to take care of. If you still living in the same home, let's say, well, you don't want to take them off of the mortgage and the deed and the maybe property casualty insurance for that property, and just put yourself on then at that point. Perhaps there's beneficiaries or other things that you want to update as yourself, right? Update for whoever you want to now label as beneficiary, because perhaps if you were married, this person's no longer going to be your beneficiary because they're passed away. So you want to update all that, and you want to also update any wills that you may not have had. You had maybe a joint will together, and you had each other on as power of attorney, but now again that's all changed. So if you went through a really good estate planning attorney, they may have already done that and suggested that by this point. If not, it may have gotten overlooked. Now's the time to take care of that and take care of the estate for you, so that whoever you're leaving behind can make sure that they have that in place and buttoned up, just like this person may have. And that really, I would say, is the nuts and bolts of that first year of taking care of someone who has passed away and cleaning up all the estate. Again, lean on professionals. That's the biggest advice I can have to anybody listening to this. But there's one other thing I want to make mention of, and that's more of the emotional psychology side of all of this. This is a very emotional time, and we know that we tend to make poor decisions, especially when it comes to finances, when there's high emotions. So I want to just make sure that you have good sounding advice in your pool of resources of people who you're taking advice from. And a lot of times family isn't always the best resource for that. And anything that you're considering to do, the general rule is don't make any big financial life decisions in that first year of the loved one passing. I've seen it in my own practice. I've seen people make pretty rash decisions, and it's led to regrets. So with that, I thank you guys for tuning in to our transition series. If you'd like more resources or a checklist of the items I discussed that goes in a little bit more detail, please reach out to us, and we're happy to provide that to you. Thank you.